1-2.
Hey folks, what up? Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Monday, November 12, 2018. Drama continues in Georgia and Florida, where they're still trying to count the votes to figure out who is going to be the next governor in those two states. The Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under law, they have filed a lawsuit or temporary restraining order against Georgia trying to count ballots in Gwinnett County. We'll talk with Kristen Clark, who leads the Lawyers Committee. Also, still drama there in Georgia. We'll talk with Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright with Black Voters Matter as they continue to also push that every vote be counted in that particular state. In Florida, Donald Trump and Rick Scott, they keep saying voter fraud. Oh my God, they're trying to steal the election. As usual, lying their asses off, no evidence whatsoever. And so we'll talk about that. And, you know, it is typical. Trump lies matter. And, of course, we'll also deal with Democrats now being in control of the House. When they come back in January, they have made it perfectly clear that they are going to push a bill for automatic voter registration all across America, which will then put Republicans on the defense in the Senate. Will they ignore it? That should be interesting. And also, the woman who was running against Mike Espy for the Senate seat in Mississippi, she said, hey, she had a guy who endorsed her, and she said, if he invited me to a public hanging, I'll be front row in Mississippi. In Mississippi. Wait till you hear her explanation. All right, y'all, Donald Trump also keeps saying how he loves veterans, and he wraps himself in a flag, yet poor Donald, it was a little rain, and so therefore the orange one did not want to get wet, and so he canceled going to an event that marked the end of World War I. Dude, so you fly from D.C. to Paris, and you skip out on going to an event marking the end of World War I, but we have photos of you playing in the rain in Virginia. Wow, talk about being a weak ass. Also, black security guard doing his job, killed by police. Good guy with a gun, gunned down by cops. All of that next. It's time to bring the funk. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's
right, folks, another week, and guess what? It's 6 days since the election, and they still have not figured out who the hell won in Florida. Andrew Gillum, he continues to press on in the Sunshine State. Over the weekend, he withdrew his concession. First of all, it really didn't even matter, him conceding the race, because it has no purpose whatsoever. But he did formally withdraw his concession because the votes are getting smaller and smaller. We're still trying to figure out where are all the ballots in Palm Beach County, Broward County, and other counties as well. Over the weekend, it was Andrew Gillum speaking in a black church where he made it perfectly clear, count every vote.
So I want y'all to know, I am in some ways tired. It's been a long 21 months. We laid it all on the field. But I want you to know I am energized around this mission to see every single vote counted on this process. I'm energized around that. I believe in our democracy. I believe that our democracy can and should work. So if you wonder why the President of the United States, the junior senator of the United States, Mr. Rubio, the sitting governor of the state of Florida are fighting like you know what to stop a vote count, that ought to tell you something. That ought to tell you something. Look, God knows how this thing will end up ultimately, but if you've got confidence, if you've got assuredness that the voters of this state chose you, then you would want every single vote to be counted. Every one. Every one.
All right, folks, that was Andrew Gillum again saying count every vote. Again, the lead has shrunk, Ron DeSantis, over Andrew Gillum, and we keep seeing the drama that exists there in the state of Florida. Now, we also see the exact same thing. There's a smaller gap that exists between incumbent Senator Bill Nelson and also Governor Rick Scott. Now, the Scott campaign, they have been doing all kinds of whining and complaining, alleging voter fraud. But guess what? The Scott appointees who monitor elections, they said, I'm sorry, there's no evidence of voter fraud. So essentially, Rick Scott and Donald Trump are flat out lying about voter fraud. In fact, we also know now that the Trump campaign, Trump White House, is ticked off with the woman who's running in Arizona because they are mad that she isn't alleging voter fraud in Arizona, because the Arizona governor even came out and said, oh, by the way, he's Republican. He even came out and said, we're going to count every vote and there's no voter fraud. So what you have is a president who is flat out lying about voter fraud, and Republicans are not backing up the lying of Donald Trump. Must be rough if they're not falling in line when it comes to Donald Trump and Governor Rick Scott. And so, again, the battle still goes as to can you count all of the ballots in Florida and Georgia. Speaking of Georgia, late last night, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law tweeted out that they filed a temporary restraining order against the state of Georgia to count provisional ballots in Gwinnett County. That's one of the places where they have some outstanding ballots. And so Stacey Abrams, her campaign, they've also filed suit against the state of Georgia. And so all kinds of lawsuits being filed left and right. Georgia Secretary of State Robin Crittenden, she has made it clear to all county officials that they should count absentee ballots even if they lack a voter's date of birth, as long as the voter's identity can be verified. Now, remember, that was one of the issues there in Georgia where Brian Kemp, what they were trying to do is essentially lock folks out if they didn't have every single item that is correct. Well, luckily, you have a interim Secretary of State who was doing the right thing when it comes to what's happening there. We still even have reports of people in Georgia and Florida who say that they got their absentee ballots late. And so that's one of the things that's been happening as well. And so just crazy, just madness all over the place. So let's talk to a couple of folks who have been on top of this in Georgia, Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright. They're co-founders of the group Black Voters Matter. And so, Cliff, I want to go to you first. So, Cliff, I want to go to... Okay, who's I'm going to go to first, Latasha or Cliff? Okay, fine, I'll go Latasha first. All right, Latasha, how you doing?
Okay.
Latasha, you there?
I'm well, Roland.
All
yes,
right.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. And so we've had drama over the weekend. Now the interim Secretary of State is saying count all the ballots. You name it, all these things have been happening. Where do we stand right now? What happened today with the drama in Georgia?
So what has happened with the lawsuit and what are some of the work that we're working on is to make sure that there is the absentee ballots. The absentee ballots have not been counted. There's over 40,000 that we know of absentee ballots that have not been counted. There are several lawsuits, as you mentioned, one that was filed last night by the Lawyers Committee, and there is a subsequent lawsuit that got filed on Saturday. Well, there was a lawsuit that got filed on Saturday in Daughtry County, and there's a lawsuit that the Abrams campaign is threatening to bring as well. There's several legal actions to be taking place, but right now the biggest issue is around pushing back. There's one court that has actually pushed back one of the election boards in the county. They have 3 additional days to come up with that to complete the vote count using the absentee ballots. And the reason why that's significant is because we know that there's over 40,000 a minimum of 40,000 absentee ballots that are still out currently right now that have not been counted.
And again, and so so how many votes does Stacey Abrams need to pick up to push Brian Kemp under 50.1 to trigger the December 4th runoff?
That's 22,000, roughly close to around 22,000 votes are needed. And it's really significant because when you look at the voter suppression and you look at, particularly if Trump firm, that it's very, very likely, that a lot of those votes may be cast, may be Stacey Abrams votes. We don't know, but that's actually just a little over half. So what we're saying, a little under half, that is really important, that those absentee ballots can make the difference. And we really do believe that what it's going to do is push Stacey over the threshold for a runoff election.
And so those are the absentee ballots. Now, when you say those absentee ballots for all of Georgia or for a few counties?
That's for all of Georgia. We don't know the entire number. There's a challenge with some of the absentee ballots because the 40,000 that we're speaking to, those are absentee ballots that specifically have blank by their name. That means that people send an absentee, they requested a ballot, the ballot may be sent back, they either elected not to send it or they sent it and it hasn't been counted. So you can actually go on the Secretary of State website to check what the status of the absentee ballot. Those ballots, the status is blank. So in addition to that, there are other particular counties that have absentee ballots that have not been counted yet. So there's there are several things that are going on right now. One, there is the finalizing of the provisional ballots. Secondly, there are some counties that were granted additional time to be able to count some of the absentee ballots that are going on. There are these 40,000 absentee ballots that have what is called a blank status right by them, which you don't know if they just weren't processed yet or they just not counted yet or people didn't turn them back in, which is why we've been doing a phone bank to reach out to folks around the absentee ballots. And then there's some ballots that have not been counted yet. So there's multiple things that are going on right now that could absolutely, with her only having a 22,000 vote difference, there's absolutely enough going on right now, enough ballots and votes out right now that can make the difference and push it into a runoff election.
Hey, Cliff, I want to bring you in right now. Again, how important is that phone bank, and what has been the reception from people who have been receiving the phone calls from you guys?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I said, what has been the reception from folks? How have those phone banks been going? You alerting folks with regards to what they should be doing when it comes to their signature in these ballots?
Yeah, so, people have been responding. First of all, people have been really surprised just to find out that their ballot has not been processed. We've had people who have said that they mailed it in plenty of time, like in some cases 2 weeks before Election Day, and yet there still hasn't been processed. We've talked to people who have said that they were told that the ballot was mailed on October 27th to them, but then when they received it, they saw a postmark date of October 29th, and they didn't receive it until the night of November 5th, which made it too late for them to do anything about it. We had one woman who was in Oklahoma at the time of the election. She said she had to request an absentee ballot 4 times, and never received it. And so we've had people who have said that they never received their ballot, and so they wound up on Election Day actually going to the polling place. And unlike the actual process, which is supposed to be that they are allowed to do a provisional ballot, we've had people say that they were not allowed to do any kind of ballot, provisional or otherwise. In fact, one woman said that the clerks literally ripped up her ballot and would not let her vote. So
Wow.
we've had all kinds of stories from folks who thought that they were that their vote had been counted, and come to find out it has not been counted.
And so, what recourse is there? Because again, when you talk about having to ask 4 times, I mean, look, that's certainly troubling.
Exactly. So right now, what the recourse is that we, along a range of other partners here in the state, National Domestic Workers, New Georgia Project, just a range of social justice groups are calling for, and there'll be a rally tomorrow at the Capitol where we are calling for an immediate recount, regardless of the 1% rule or the 50% plus one runoff rule. What we actually have here in Georgia, which a lot of folks haven't talked about, the Secretary of State actually has the discretion to call for a recount under certain situations, even when it's not within that 1%. That 1% margin of victory. And so we are calling on the Secretary of State, and thank God that Brian Kemp is no longer Secretary of State, mainly through the actions of Latasha and the lawsuit that she found. But we are calling on the current Secretary of State to call for an immediate recount so that all of these questions can be explored, so that all of these ballots, absentee, provisional, otherwise, can be counted. And that's the only way we'll really know what the real margin is, and whether or not then we may still wind up going to a runoff. But the only way to get to the runoff is to count all the votes, and the only way to count all the votes is to have an immediate recount.
What time? First of all, what time is that rally, and where is it tomorrow?
It's 1 o'clock. It's going to be inside the Capitol. I don't have an exact room, but if you go to the Capitol, there'll be signage. There'll be people there to guide folks. So if you are in the Atlanta area, 1 o'clock at the Capitol tomorrow.
Okay. All right then. Well, Cliff and Latasha, we certainly appreciate your diligence on this, and certainly we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you, Roland.
All right, thank you so very much. All right, folks, I said earlier that the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, they've been quite busy when it comes to filing lawsuits and trying to get attention and focus on what is happening here. Late last night, Christian Clark sent out a tweet saying that they were seeking a TRO, a temporary restraining order, when it comes to Gwinnett County. And so we have her. Do we have Christian, folks? Okay, so in a second, we're going to have Christian in a second. So I definitely want to talk to her because, again, the lawyers have been quite busy. I want to bring in our panel, obviously, Michael Brown, former DNC Finance Committee member, also Avis Jones, the Weaver leadership strategist, Eugene Craig, of course, with the, you still with the Maryland Republican Party, or?
I'm still Republican, but,
right.
I'm out of leadership.
You work with the party, but out of leadership, got it, all right. Eugene Craig organization, but Maryland Republican as well. So lawyers are quite busy. Mike, I want to go to you. I mean, we see this constantly, again, how busy they are in dealing with taking folks to court because of the election drama. We keep in Florida, just seems to be an annual rite of passage.
And that seems to be the recourse that we have to go to, and that's what our system is set up. And by the way, before I continue to answer the question, Roland, obviously to all our veterans out there, happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your service. But the court is our kind of our last line of defense. If the folks in political office that actually determine what the rules are, and then they change the rules as we're in the same process of election time or after election day, it's important that we have a recourse, which is court. The problem with the court are, depending on what that state does, are they appointed by the governor? Are they elected judges? Are they going to have a political dog in that fight? So until we have kind of a more uniform way of how we vote in this country, I think we're going to continue to have these problems. And as you mentioned, it's a rite of passage every time we have elections in Florida. Or, frankly, every time there's a person of color or a black person on the ballot, there always seems to be a problem.
And it's constant drama, Avis. I mean, again, and luckily this interim Secretary of State is leading with some common sense. And for all the people last week who kept saying, oh, it's too late, they're wasting their time throwing Brian Kemp out, Now you see why LaTosha Brown and others filed a lawsuit, because having an interim Secretary of State leads to different decisions being made.
Absolutely. I mean, this is far from over. If there are some 40,000 plus votes that are yet to be counted, and they only need to hit the margin of like 21,000 to force a runoff, then this is far from over. And the decisions that the Secretary of State makes are absolutely critical as to whether or not those ballots are actually counted. So having brought that lawsuit and getting Kemp out of that position was absolutely critical, because we all know that he had, from the very beginning, put his thumb on the scales in his favor, and he would have continued to do so till the end.
Eugene?
Brian Kemp was ready to pull a, hey, we investigated ourselves and found nothing wrong. And Avis is absolutely correct. With the interim Secretary of State, there are going to be decisions made. And I also think that every decision that Brian Kemp made up until his resignation kind of, hangs over this current Secretary of State, where she kind of, to a degree, has to give some leeway to outstanding ballots and making sure that, there's at least the appearance that every single vote is being counted and that, every single voter or vote is being respected. So I do think this is far from over. I think, it probably will get pushed to a runoff, especially if this new batch of 40,000 absentee votes are included.
All right, let's bring in Kristen Clark. Of course, she leads the largest committee for civil rights under law. And Kristen, late last night, you tweeted out the filing of this TRO in Gwinnett County. Please explain that.
So we filed a lawsuit against Gwinnett County prior to Election Day over the mass rejection of absentee ballots in that county. And the rejection rates for African Americans and Asian American voters was absolutely through the roof. The temporary restraining order that we filed is in the context of that case. We know that there are over 1,000 absentee ballots in the possession of officials in Gwinnett County that haven't been processed. They haven't been given the green light or the go-ahead, so we filed with the court for emergency relief. We need the court to basically order the officials at this stage of the game to go on ahead and count those ballots. These are ballots that we believe were filed by eligible voters and that there's no reason their vote should be discounted. Tomorrow there's an important meeting happening on the ground in Gwinnett County. The Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law will be there. I encourage anyone in Gwinnett County to show up to that meeting in the morning. It's all about shining a light on what's happening and what's not happening. And we intend to use every tool in our arsenal to make sure that ballots get counted. Same thing in Florida, Roland. You may have seen reports about boxes and boxes of mailed-in ballots in a facility in Miami-Dade County. We are seeking to hold officials accountable. Those ballots must be counted. And the reality is that there are ballots that are still trickling in from military voters and overseas citizens. Under law, those ballots must be counted up until 10 days after an election. So we believe that same window of time provides a cushion here for officials who haven't done their job to do it now. We're not going to sit back while voters get disenfranchised this election cycle.
And again, when you hear these stories of folks having to ask several times to get their ballots and having to call and still not getting it. I've seen tweets from members of the military saying they also requested their ballots and still have not gotten it. First of all, is there a process there to know that is there a deadline that you're supposed to get it by a certain time and then receive by a certain time versus having to constantly keep and how do you even check to know that if your ballot was received and counted?
Let me just say this. It's Veterans Day weekend, and it is shameful that at this moment we are talking about military voters who may have been disenfranchised as well. There is one agency that we can certainly hold accountable here, and that's the Justice Department. They've given up protecting the rights of minority voters, but at minimum, they could be doing their small part to make sure that our nation's American citizens who are serving abroad are getting their ballots by state officials and holding officials accountable when they're not doing so. So it's truly shameful. But what we're focused on as a racial justice organization is making sure that African Americans, Latinos, or racial minorities get locked out this election cycle.
All right, Kristen Clark, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me. And Roland, people can call us tomorrow at 866-OUR-VOTE if they're having problems. We're going to keep fighting tooth and nail until every vote gets counted.
All right, then, Kristen, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, then. And again, folks, what we're doing is trying to get you more information, including that website. I'm going to have it for you. As a matter of fact, let me pull it up now. I had Latasha and Cliff on Tom Joyner this morning. They were talking about that. If you're in, so there's a particular website that you can go to check to see if your absentee ballot was counted. Give me a second. Latasha sent it to me this morning. Here it is, and this is in Georgia. The website is www.mvp.sos.ga.gov. Again, www.mvp.sos.ga.gov. Latasha says after they enter their name and date of birth, there's a box in the bottom left corner to check on absentee ballot status. Again, www.mvp.sos.ga.gov. So if you're living in Georgia, you can actually go to that website to see if your absentee ballot actually had been counted. Now, all this drama when it comes to registration, when it comes to voting, Republicans have been doing all they can to, frankly, stop folks from voting. I told you before, and then I love it when Brandon Cooper was on here and others were totally denying these things, but in Maine, where voters there allowed for same-day voter registration, Republicans in Maine basically got rid of the law. The voters said, the hell with you. They did a ballot initiative, put it back on the law, on the books the following year on the ballot, and it passed 65%. And so many people clearly understand that this is basic, why you can't have this automatic voter registration. Well, Democrats, they made it clear that by them taking control over the House, they're going to push forward this particular bill to establish automatic voter registration all across the country. Joining us right now is a member of the House Judiciary Committee, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Houston. Congresswoman, glad to have you on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thank you so very much. And Roland, thank you for focusing on one of the most continuing domestic crisis in this nation, and that is the ongoing vicious voter suppression that happens across the nation.
You are on this particular committee. Bob Goodlatte has been the chairman of this particular committee, a Republican from Virginia. And after the Shelby v. Holder decision by the Supreme Court to confront Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act, he refused to hold any hearings. Anything dealing with voting, he would not even touch. Now that Democrats control the House, now you can put forth various bills to deal with the issue of voting and voter suppression in this nation.
There is no doubt, and we had a conference call of Democratic members of the committee, and the chairman who will ultimately take that position in January from New York, Mr. Nadler, and all of us committed to having voting rights be one or two on the list of immediate action. And let me just indicate the extensive devastation of not proceeding to fix Shelby case that happened in about 2013 or so. We have had all of these years where we have every single year and many, many times throughout the session sought to have the Republicans have a hearing on the fix of the Shelby case and the many bills that were submitted not only by Democrats but by the Congressional Black Caucus, where we rallied the whole Democratic caucus around a fix of Section 5. And that is for your listeners to know that it helps you pre-clear any action. So the action that Kent took in Georgia to thwart, deny, and violate the rights of Stacey and Abrams and all of the voters by purging 50,000 plus would have been subjected to Section 5, and we can assure you that it would not have been allowed. And so the violence that happens is the violence against the individual liberties and rights of citizens not to be counted when they were duly registered and they were actually purged. That was a sad state of affairs, and it's something that we wish to fix immediately. I would make the argument if those individuals had not been purged, rather than the valiant effort that she is now doing to become governor, which she deserves, she would be putting forward her transition team for the governorship in the state of Georgia. And what we see in Florida is equally so. So in addition to Section 5, same-day registration, we're talking about paper trail throughout the nation. We don't have that. Funding to modernize every state and local entity that are still using broke down, outdated machines that don't seem to work or overburdened by the increasing population. You frankly can't use machines that you bought 10 years ago and you've had either double the population, quarter of the population, 10% growth in population. You simply cannot use those machines. And so we want to create and insist of the modernization of the equipment that is used. Then we want to massively do what was done in Florida, which is to restore the rights across the nation, particularly in federal elections, of ex-felons who have done their time and are now out as ex-felons, but are due citizens who deserve the right to have their voting privileges restored. We want that to be a national law and not leave it up to the states, and insist that every single state restore the voting rights of any ex-felon who meets the criteria, as they did in the state of Florida.
And Congresswoman, obviously, if you make this move, it now puts Republicans in a different position. You know, they love to talk about how many Republicans voted for the Voting Rights Act in 1965. And so if the House Democrats are able to move this bill in January, it should be one. I personally think it should be the first bill that they actually move. Then Republicans are now put in a position where Mitch McConnell will have to be saying no to actually giving Americans the right to vote, including white folks, black folks, Latinos, Asians, Native Americans, and also Republican voters.
You have hit the nail on the head. None of what we have proposed or are going to propose has any color, any race labeled at the top. It is not the Black Voting Rights Act of 1965. It is not the Black Restoration of Section 5 Act. It is clearly to empower Americans to go into the ballot box silently, without intrusion, and to vote their conscience or their desires. There should be no military raids in the voting booth to tell anyone of a different race or background that you cannot vote as you desire. And I would ask the question of Mr. McConnell as to who does he represent? A limited, small, partisan nationalist group that does not want to see the expanse of America vote under the Constitution and have the privileges of due process, which would be all people. What about the vulnerable, poor people in Kentucky that may have a difficult accessing the voting box? One of the things that we do in a massive reformation was to make sure that access to voting areas is made in rural and non-rural America, is made on made on reservations and pueblos, where Native Americans live. It would be to say if you live in a difficult location in rural Georgia, rural Mississippi, rural Texas, that you would be able to vote because we'd be required to have a voting site near you on campuses, university campuses of a certain size. We require you to put a voting box on that campus. So I would ask the question of Mr. McConnell, are you going to be the leader of America, or are you going to be a political hack that will deny people the right to vote?
All right, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. In a moment, we're going to talk to Congressman Steve Cohen of Memphis. We're going to go to our panel here. Eugene, I'll start with you. Again, first of all, this would be absolutely smart by Democrats coming out of the gate.
Yeah.
Because what it would do is it would force Republicans to literally say, oh, it's a bad idea for automatic voter registration. Oh, it's a bad idea to say you should have, of course, voting locations on college campuses. Oh, it's a bad idea to modernize voting machines across the state. They would literally be saying no to improving America's voting system.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. I mean, it's a couple things, and the Congresswoman gave us a lot to unpack. The first thing is that it'd be delivering on a promise directly from day one to the Democrat voters. Secondly, it'd be voter protections given to voters across the country that we didn't see in 2018 and 2016. I mean, I would love to see the Russians try to play around with, a new voting system. I like that. The third thing is that it would put Republicans on the defensive. And, it will put, more specifically folk like Cory Gardner and Marco Rubio and, some other folk that are up for re-election in 2020 on the defensive in very diverse states.
Avis, they can complain about voter fraud, things along those lines, but if you're talking about fixing problems in America's voting system, I would just love to see Republicans just whine and say, oh, this is a bad idea.
I would love to see that too. And quite frankly, though, even more powerfully, I would love to see the Democrats really push this. Because I have to tell you, in terms of the things that a lot of the leaders in the party have been public about in terms of their priorities in January, this hasn't been on the list. And this needs to be on the list. As we move forward, we need to make sure that when the Democrats take control in January, that they not only push forward in terms of the investigations that they're interested in terms of DACA, in terms of all these other things that they're interested in. Voting rights needs to be a priority, and as far as I'm concerned, it needs to be priority number one.
And tell you what, Michael, again, if whoever the Speaker of the House is going to be, if it's Nancy Pelosi, if it's going to be someone else, if it's going to be Steny Hoyer, if it's going to be Jim Clyburn, I have no idea who they're going to elect. Frankly, if I'm them, it would be literally a flurry of bills being passed in the first 30 days to put maximum pressure on Mitch McConnell and the United States Senate to deal with these fundamental issues happening in this nation.
I think they'll have, whoever the leadership is, you're right, we don't know yet. You know my position on it. I think it will be Speaker Pelosi. But I think the challenge that they will have, the leadership will have, is they'll be under a lot of pressure to do some kind of Mueller kind of investigation bill first. That's the pressure they're going to be under. I agree with you. I do think it should be a voting rights piece.
Okay, but here's the deal. Can't they do more than one thing at one time?
Yep.
I mean, that's what I have never understood this whole idea that the United States Congress can literally only do one thing at one time.
You're right. And I think part of the problem is whether it's the Sunday talk show circuit, whether it's letters from constituents, that's what they're not going to want to talk about voter suppression on Meet the Press and Face the Nation. They should, but I don't know if they will.
But here's why they should not do the Mueller first. It's the same reason why. What are Republicans, they got mad at Trump when they said, dude, don't do health care first. Do tax reform first. Do low-hanging fruit. Get easy wins. And hold on 1 second. I want to now bring in Congressman Steve Cohen. We finally got him on the line here. Congressman, you just heard Michael Brown say what Democrats should do. I just fundamentally believe that you get low-hanging fruit. If they go after this voter bill and go after things along those lines first, then to me it's smart politics and it's also creating momentum. And again, I just don't understand why. Maybe you can explain to me how the hell Congress can only do one thing at one time per session. Like really? I didn't realize you can't pass two bills in one day. That's just me.
Well, you're exactly right, and we have committee systems, and different committees deal with different issues all the time on the same day. And you're also right that we need to do some basic fundamental changes before we start investigating. We did what we called a 6 for 06 when we had a big victory in 2006 when I was a freshman. And Nancy Pelosi laid that out and included passing Lilly Ledbetter, a minimum wage, certain ethics laws, and reform of the earmarking and system and other changes to the laws. And we ought to do the same thing in voter rights and voter suppression, and the renewing the Voting Rights Act ought to be right at the top. And if we do that, we can show we're trying to do some things that are important for the average American, for the middle and low income and higher income too, because voting is something for everybody. And we also should pass a higher national minimum wage, and there should be some issues like that. And Trump can't then come back immediately and go, oh, look, all they're trying to do is impeach me, and have that argument. He will get in an argument with us regardless, because that's just his personality. Give him the opportunity to do it, and he'll do other things that are clearly impeachable and in need of investigation, and that will take care of itself because he will provide the ammunition, and the American public will want it to be looked into. But we need to be doing other things, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, try to create a better prescription drug prices, and try to have some areas where we can work and get something accomplished. Now, a lot of it will be difficult with the Senate, and I don't know that they'll want to make voting easier, because if all Americans voted, there wouldn't be too many Republicans around.
But again, though, I think it puts pressure on a Mitch McConnell because what he would, in essence, be saying is the hell with actually improving America's voter system. That, to me,
You're right.
is what I think is important because now it puts them on the defensive to have to defend nonsense.
You're exactly right, and he would have to do it, and we do need to put him on the spot. And that's much of what we can do as long as since we don't have the Senate. We can pass smart, good changes in the law from the American society and for the overwhelming majority of people in the country, even the Trump Republicans, and they can see that the Republican leadership doesn't want to do things that they know make sense and are good for them as well. So we do need to do that. Put them on the spot.
Congressman Steve Cohen of Memphis, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. And you have the second best barbecue in America behind Texas.
Well, good luck with UAB. Good luck with UAB this week.
We'll handle UAB. Trust me, that's not a problem. Congressman, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. All right, folks. Mike Espy, of course, he is in a November 27th runoff in Mississippi to become the next United States Senator. And he is running against State Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. Lord have mercy, y'all. This is what this crazy ass woman. I told y'all white women are losing their mind in America. I keep telling y'all that, okay? White women keep losing their mind in America. They calling the cops on black people. This is what she actually said this weekend. Okay, some of y'all probably missed that. Y'all need to play that again because I want y'all to literally hear and read what this woman. Yeah, press play. Now, after this thing went viral, this is what she had to say. In referencing the one who invited me, I used an exaggerated expression of regard, and any attempt to turn this into a negative connotation is ridiculous. Y'all, today she had a news conference, and it got worse.
Put out a statement yesterday, and we stand by that statement.
Could you expand on it then, why you said it, what you meant by it, and why people in the state should not see it as offensive?
We put out the statement yesterday, and it's available, and we stand by that statement.
Senator, are you familiar with Mississippi's history of lynchings?
I put out a statement yesterday, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
You mentioned that it shouldn't be viewed with a negative connotation. Could you at least explain
I put out a
how
statement
it could be
yesterday,
positive?
and we stand by the statement, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Is that phrasing in your everyday lingo, in your vocabulary? Do you use
I
that
put out a
phrase?
statement yesterday.
Governor, you appointed her as
Okay, first of all, Cindy Hyde-Smith is actually a United States Senator. She's a junior senator. She replaced Thad Cochran when he retired because of health issues. Now, let me read her statement again, y'all. I'm going to read her statement again. In referencing, no, this is what she said. This is her statement. Okay, guys, I got it. I'm reading it. Got it. In referencing the one who invited me, I use an exaggerated expression of regard, and any attempt to turn this into a negative connotation is ridiculous.
I mean, you know.
An expression of regard?
An expression of regard among who? Fellow Klan members? I mean,
right.
Right. This is crazy. I mean, it's beyond crazy. I mean, there literally is not a proper description of what kind of expression of regard this is. There is no regard here. There is nothing fun or cool or hip or dandy about a public hanging. I mean, the thing is this, so I've been doing some research on this. The question I've been asking a lot of folks, especially those in criminal justice field, is when was the last public hanging? Has public hangings ever been like, has death penalty hangings ever been like a public thing? And what I found is that not in the last, 80 years or so. Well, Cindy Hyde-Smith was born in 1959, which meant that her only association with public hangings or hangings would be illegal lynchings. So one more time, if this is a statement of regard, is it among fellow Klan members, fellow racists? Who? I think, I've been, championing Mike Espy for a while now, a couple of weeks now. I mean, I know we're focused on Florida, focused on Georgia, but there's a runoff right here in our face where people can give, people can get active, and we can actually get a fourth black United States Senator elected.
Now here's a statement from Mike Espy. Again, he is a former agriculture commissioner, former member of Congress, and so after her nonsense, this again, Oh, it's ridiculous. A negative connotation. You damn right hanging is negative. This is what Mike Espy's campaign said. Cindy Hyde-Smith's comments are reprehensible. They have no place in our political discourse in Mississippi or our country. We need leaders, not dividers, and her words show that she lacks the understanding and judgment to represent the people of our state. Now, Avis, again, first of all, I'm just trying to figure out how is, if you invite me to a public hanging, I'll be happy to sit with you in the front row. Somehow, this positive thing.
It's not a positive thing. And I watched that entire press conference today, and it was an embarrassment. They spent the entire time, aside from the point that the little statements that she made about, I already said my statement, read my statement, the entire press conference was some sort of argument around being, get this, pro-life. Pro-life. The entire press conference was the governor making arguments about the importance of being pro-life. They had some sort of pro-life activist there that spoke.
Hold on.
You can't be
about
pro-life
being
and pro-death penalty at the same time.
But
That's
if
the
you invite me to a
contradiction.
public hanging, that means somebody gonna die.
Exactly. Hello.
Thank you. As somebody that is pro-life, you cannot be pro-life and pro-death penalty at the same time.
Well,
Now, granted, I do have an exception when it comes to the George Zimmerman. I think that should be a very public death penalty.
Exactly.
But that's my only exception.
It was incredible. They were making this long pro-life argument, and what was amazing to me also is the irony here is that the governor of the state is actually the nephew of the woman who lied on Emmett Till that caused his lynching, in a sense. And so to act like there is no history to this. The state that really had the most lynching in that era was Mississippi. To act like there is no history to this, that there is no context to this, and then to not even have the courage to answer direct questions about what you said, as well as sit here and make the claim that someone is somehow misinterpreting what you say,
right,
and in the process refuse to even apologize, shows me that she is not worthy of the office to which she holds, and that each and every person who is within the sound of our voices need to do everything that we can to make sure that Mike Espy gets in the Senate.
Mike, everybody assumes Mississippi is a red state, that Mike Espy can't win. But the reality is, when you look at the number of votes that he got in the general election compared to her, significant black population in Mississippi. They basically tilted the election when Thad Cochran was running against the Tea Party. Against McDaniel. Black folks crossed and voted for Cochran over McDaniel. He has a shot if folks don't assume he has no shot and they stay at home.
I think you're right, and I think the secretary, I imagine, knows that as he's putting down his strategy for the next 2 weeks. Was it November 27th? I think?
Yeah, November 27th.
And this certainly, you hate for things like this to happen, for somebody to make a stupid comment like that, but clearly this is going to or should motivate and help.
This should be turned into an ad.
Today. Oh, yeah.
This should be turned into an ad today and ran on every black outlet, every black blog, every. I mean, I'm sorry. If I was running an outside group, I'll be pouring millions of dollars into Instagram influencers just to post that video.
But here's the problem, Mike. This is the fundamental problem. Democrats. This is where Democrats, I believe, constantly screw up. They make the assumption there's no way Espy can win. So therefore, we're not going to waste any money or any resources. When the reality is there are white Democrats in Mississippi and there are black Democrats in Mississippi. And at the end of the day, you have to run. If you're able to get folks out, you don't assume people are going to be running out voting in massive numbers for her.
And frankly, from a resource standpoint, clearly we know what's happening in Georgia and Florida, but this is the only game in town.
Yeah.
Obviously, Arizona is going to be decided. Clearly, Senator-elect Sinema is going to win that. So this is the only game in town. There's really no reason in the world not to pour the resources into Mississippi for the Senate.
And here, one second. Hold on one second. I'm going to read this here. Here we go to my iPad. This is a piece right here that was on CNBC. The bigger problems for Espy start when GOP support consolidates behind the incumbent. Asked last month about a potential head-to-head race, half of Mississippi's likely voters said they would back Hyde-Smith, while 36% said they would support Espy, according to an NBC News Marist poll. It found the senator earning slightly more support among Republicans than Espy garners among Democrats. That's the problem right there. The problem is you got white folks in Mississippi who are Democrat who are lethargic about supporting a black man to be United States Senator.
Yeah. But if I could change the narrative a little bit here, there are 650,000 black Democrats registered in Mississippi. On election day, there were roughly 700,000 total votes cast. Total votes cast. So this is a race that literally can be won by driving significant black vote turnout during a runoff. The other thing is this. I actually doubt the consolidation behind Hyde-Smith. Chris McDaniel Chris McDaniel followers are similar to Ron Paul followers. They'll vote for Chris McDaniel and nobody else. Those are the type of conservatives they are.
So what we need is black people in Mississippi. We need y'all not to be lazy, not to make excuses. We need y'all not only saying, but you're going out and vote. You need mobilization. We need folks who are out there mobilizing people who went to Florida, who went to Georgia, who were in Alabama, who were supporting Beto O'Rourke in Texas. Yeah, those folks need to be on the ground with literally vans and buses taking people to the polls if you want to make a difference. But I keep saying, as long as you sit around and complain and don't vote, just shut the hell up. Also, folks, Mike Espy will be on Roland Martin Unfiltered tomorrow, so look forward to having him on the show. All right, got to go to a break. When we come back, more Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment.
Experience, which destroys innocence, also leads one back to it. Writer and activist James Baldwin.
As y'all can see, it's HBCU Giving Day, and I decided to go ahead and not only rock the Grambling tracksuit when I spoke there last year, they gave me that, but also the president, when he came on the show, gave me this great jacket here. So I'm an honorary band drum major at Grambling. So Grambling State University is our HBCU Giving Day school. It, of course, opened in 1901 as the Colored Industrial and Agricultural School. In 1946, it became Grambling. And, of course, we know many of their famous graduates, Erica Purdue, Willis Reed, and, of course, Super Bowl winning quarterback Doug Williams. Of course, if you want to support Grambling, pull it up, please. Go to graham.edu, www.graham.edu. To support Grambling. And so again, and you're a Grambling graduate, we expect you to also be giving money back to your university, supporting them each and every single chance you can get. And so no excuses, no complaints, and so you should be supporting Grambling. All right, folks, time for some words from one of our partners. You heard me talk about our friends at Transatlantic Real Estate, who have created a unique investment opportunity that combines legal marijuana and crowdfunding. Now, of course, let that sink in for a second. Think about the growing momentum around legal marijuana in this country. It's been on various ballot initiatives. And if you're an investor, there's never been a better time for you to get in the game. However, as markets grow, so does the barrier to entry, which means it will take millions, if not billions, to invest, not to mention the risk of starting a new venture. That's what makes this opportunity so special. Transatlantic Real Estate is different, and their business model is very simple to understand. They buy land that supports marijuana grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That means that you'll be investing as a landlord of a licensed marijuana farm. The best part, they're using crowdfunding to make it easy for the average person to get in before they take the company public. So for a limited time, you can invest as little as $300 up to $10,000. And look, now remember, you must complete and confirm your application to participate in this opportunity. Now, don't be the person who missed out because you rushed and didn't complete the process. To invest, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org for you to get in the game and get in the game now. All right, y'all. So over the weekend, Donald Trump flew to Paris, okay? Because now, first of all, remember last year when he won this big old parade in the United States? And then they said, that's going to cost about $80 to $100 million, which was a stupid idea. And so then again, he said, well, fine, okay, whatever. Since you don't want to give me my parade, I'm going to go to the parade and they're going to have in Europe, okay, to support the end of, commemorate the end of World War I. Okay. So he flies to Paris. They're supposed to go to a cemetery, a U.S. cemetery, there to pay respects to the veterans who died. Okay, now remember, this is Veterans Weekend. And you know, Donald Trump just wraps himself in the flag. Remember how he walks over and cradles the flag and he holds it like Charlie Brown held his blanket. He's always talking about the military and first responders and our veterans and how much I did for veterans. Okay, it was raining at the cemetery and he didn't want to get wet. So he skipped it. Y'all, he skipped it. Do y'all know how big of an umbrella they have for the President of the United States? I'm a golfer, okay? We have these 68 to 72-inch umbrellas that could literally keep Michael Avis and Eugene dry at the same time. That's how huge these umbrellas are. Nah, see, Orange One couldn't do that because it was a little too wet for him because he didn't want his shoes to get soggy. So he skipped the event. Now, Prince Harry, y'all know he went to the event. Maybe that's because Prince Harry actually served in the military. Okay? But then again, you don't have to serve in the military to pay your respects. Now, over the weekend, Twitter blew up with tons of photos of President Barack Obama, who did not serve in the military, in the rain, with the military. Here's one of the videos right here. Okay, this is 2009. Obama at Arlington National Cemetery on Veterans Day. Y'all see it was raining. Y'all see he don't even have an umbrella because now, see, the First Lady, they hold an umbrella over her head, but Obama wasn't scared of the rain. Yeah. Matter of fact, I think that this is where New Edition. Can you stand the rain? I mean,
his answer is no.
What the? This is such a punk move. Now, here's a tweet from a journalist who made this point. I thought was pretty good. If a football player kneeling during the national anthem is an act of appalling disrespect to the men and women who serve, what is it when the commander-in-chief refuses to go to the cemetery to honor fallen soldiers because of a little rain?
You don't. A commander-in-chief that can't honor veterans or fallen soldiers does not deserve to be commander-in-chief.
And also, mind you, he is yet to visit
active war troops at war in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's crazy.
He won't go. He's scared.
You can't. I mean, it's crazy how he can make a huge thing out of quote-unquote voter fraud and elections and having the biggest crowd. But you can't take time out your day to securely go visit troops that are actively participating in protecting our rights to elect our own leaders, our rights to have freedom of the press, our rights to keep and bear arms.
Avis, can you imagine if today is Veterans Day? Mm-hmm. He didn't go to Arlington National Cemetery. Can you imagine how the Republicans would have acted if Obama had skipped out on laying a wreath? Girl, gone.
Well, we all know the answer to that question. I mean, actually, this is the birther-in-chief, right, who is now, unfortunately, the President of the United States. And we see who is the real person here who has no respect for this country, the real person here who has no loyalty to the country, the real person here who doesn't really give a damn about the sacrifices that have been made for this country. To think that he would fly all the way to Paris, and the only thing that he really attended in which it looked like he wanted to be there was the opportunity to be able to give his boy Putin dap. But when it came to actually being able to show respect to people who gave their lives for this country, he was MIA in the same way that he was MIA even today here by not visiting Arlington Cemetery once again because it's raining. Your comb over is not that important.
Weak, Mike, weak.
He's just an un-American American president. I don't know how else to put it. He wraps himself up. I don't know what's that new term he uses, nationalist and He is just, I don't get it. I don't get also the people around him, Roland. Where are the folks saying, Mr. President, you have to go in the rain? Even your boy Obama went. Hey, Mr. President, you got to go to Arlington National Cemetery today.
He didn't do it.
I don't understand. The folks, are they so scared that they'll get fired? I guess
Yes.
that's clear.
Yeah,
I know it's a
yes,
rhetorical.
they're terrified.
You know, I'm asking a rhetorical question. But then it also gets deeper into hypocrisy with this whole "let's stop counting the votes" when a lot of the military votes haven't been counted yet.
Yeah.
So he wants to disenfranchise the folks he claims he's for.
Now,
So
I want to pull this up. These are the folks, of course, at Vote Vets. First of all, you know he doesn't care about them because Donald Trump actually blocked them on Twitter. This is what.
Oh, my God.
No, he did. No, he blocked Vote Vets.
Mr. Bone Spurs in chief.
Yeah, he did.
Wow.
This is the tweet. Donald Trump continuously shows he has no respect for service or those who served. John Soltz, chair of the veteran group Vote Vets, told the New York Daily News about Trump effectively arguing for barring soldiers stationed abroad from voting in Florida's midterms. To your point, Mike, they also, of course, blasted him over the whole issue of not going to the cemetery. I mean, this is a veterans group, and he literally is saying, I don't really care about y'all.
That's what you know, it's so interesting to me, and we've had this conversation back in the green room when we're waiting on. I think some of these Trump voters, I don't know if they're frightened or embarrassed.
No, they're stupid.
Or scared
I'm
to
sorry.
acknowledge they made a mistake.
No,
Just say, you know what, I messed up. My bad.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. They're stupid. And I'm tired of the media playing games on this very issue because they're stupid. Okay? Because these are the very same people who are, our veterans, our military, support our troops. And you keep covering for a dude who grossly disrespects them. Okay? Who grossly disrespects them. You can't even go to pay your respects. Right. You flew Air Force One over to Paris to specifically honor veterans, American veterans who died in World War I, and you can't even get your lazy ass out of a hotel and put on an overcoat and grab an umbrella to go pay your respects. And all of you Republicans who are silent, who make excuses, you are repugnant because you are fake patriots. You say you love America. You love wrapping yourself in the flag. You love putting out yellow ribbons. You love condemning black folks who kneel. You love talking all this stuff about paying our respects and how we must show our appreciation. But this man disrespects them, and you say nothing. Not only couldn't he go there, he couldn't even go to Arlington National Cemetery today. Okay, how hard is it when he's played golf in the rain?
Yeah,
and you make excuses. What was it? A head cold? What was it? A little under the weather? And Melania, you could at least win as well.
Oh, she don't care either. Well,
Hey, let's go ahead.
but the thing is also beyond this, which this is insulting. It is completely disrespectful. But let's also look at some other things that he's not doing that he needs to do for veterans. It just came out this week about GI Bill benefits being caught up for months. People on the verge of being homeless, people not being able to pay for their tuition to go to college. You know, these basic things that people are supposed to get. This is part of the contract that we make with people who serve this country, that if you give your time and your energy and your effort and potentially risk your life for this nation, that if you survive that, when you come back, we're supposed to have these basic benefits available for you. And this administration is not even there. They're way behind the ball with that.
He
as
loves going in front of Brett's group and saluting the flag and embracing the flag and caressing it and holding it like it's a baby. Y'all, Republicans, if you say nothing, you're repugnant. Because at least you have the decency to have some character and integrity and say what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. Speaking of what's wrong, 4 a.m. Sunday, folks, a black security guard asked a group of patrons to leave a bar in Robbins, Illinois. They came back, one had a gun, opened fire. The security guard returned fire and held the suspect down, waiting for cops to show up. Well, they did. Everyone outside was screaming security. But he was a security guard. Cops, didn't matter. They killed him. Security guard was Jamel Robinson. He was a musician and deeply spiritual. He aspired to be a police officer. Illinois State Police are now investigating this case. Folks, it's very simple. All it proves, if you are a black man and you got all these people who tell black people they should also get guns.
Yeah.
Okay, let's be real clear. You black with a gun, you are assumed to be the suspect.
Yep. I mean, we saw it with Philando Castile. I mean, and it's not like, right-wing NRA and Gun Owners of America and National Association of Gun Rights, they're not going to protect your gun rights. They just aren't.
Yeah, I'm wondering, where is the NRA statement on this?
Well, the NRA,
where is it?
Their advocacy is skin deep, is melanin deep.
Oh, first of all, this is also, Michael, the same NRA who over the weekend trashed doctors who are anti-gun, telling them to stay in their lane when they were saying, okay, we're the ones who have to treat gun victims. That was embarrassing to tell doctors to shut up and stay in your lane.
And it'll be very interesting to see what their new strategy is moving forward, because a lot of their candidates went down last week.
Oh, yes, they did.
And went down hard. So we'll be curious to see, do they say, hey, maybe we need to get a little more moderate, or are they going to say, hey, we need to get more cash in for the right? I don't know. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see how they act.
Well, certainly prayers for Jamel's family as well. All right, folks, don't forget, you can support us at Roland Martin Unfiltered by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com to subscribe to us. Remember, also, you can like and share and subscribe to our YouTube channel by going to youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. Also, turn on your notifications so when we go live with the show, but also other shows that we stream, you will have an opportunity to actually see the show. And to join our Bring the Funk fan club, go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com and then just click to support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show. Your dollars goes to keep this show independent and covering the issues that you want covered. And also showing black folks more than one at a time, which seems to be a little hard for a lot of cable networks, except when it comes to black stories. And so we just happen to do it every single day. Just plentiful black people, just lots of melanin on this show. And so we want you to support us as well. And so thank you to Michael, Avis, and Eugene. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, I got to go. Don't forget, Mike Espy is going to be on the show tomorrow. You want to hear that conversation. And y'all should be calling, texting, tweeting, Facebooking, Tumbling, everything possible, Instagramming. I don't care. Anybody you know in Mississippi, to tell them, get off their butts and focus on voting November 27th in that runoff between Mike Espy and the public hanging woman. That's your choice. The brother and the public hanging woman. Take your pick. The public hanging woman and Mike Espy. I ain't telling you to vote for. I'm just saying, one 50 years ago would have got lynched. The other would have been watching the lynching.
50 years later.
Take your pick who you think should be in the United States Senate. All right, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla!